Good morning, and thank you all for joining us. I am Dr. Regina Peruggi, the president of Kingsborough Community College, and it is an honor to welcome Governor Cuomo to Kingsborough today. It was only last June that we welcomed both former Governor Mario Cuomo and his wife Matilda to our campus to receive the President's Medal when Matilda delivered the commencement address to our students. So it is a pleasure to now welcome you here, Governor Cuomo. Our spring semester started just Tuesday, and many of our students, faculty, and staff members have returned after what has been an extraordinarily difficult couple of months. As we all know, Kingsborough had the largest number of students, faculty, and staff affected by the storm in the entire university, over 2,500. And in getting our campus back in shape and obtaining help for our students and staff, we are grateful for all the assistance by the state through the governor's efforts. At your direction, your agencies immediately responded to us, and with their help, we were able to reopen our campus in a week, despite the fact that the entire campus was devastated. We thank you. Today, the governor will talk to us about his vision and plan for the state this year and how to continue the progress that has been made in so many areas. We are particularly grateful that the governor recognizes the importance of community colleges as economic drivers across the state and throughout the country. With over 47% of the nation's higher education students enrolled at community colleges, he recognizes our potential for equipping students with the skills they need to grow our economy and improve our communities. It is right here at Kingsborough and other community colleges that the next generation of professionals to join the workforce is being educated. Here at Kingsborough, we offer students a wide range of programs, from business to engineering, from maritime technology to culinary arts, from criminal justice to biotechnology. We are preparing students for the New York workforce and for continuing their education to the baccalaureate level and beyond. I am also proud to share with the governor that Kingsborough has been selected as one of the 10 finalists for the Aspen Prize for Community College Excellence, selected from among the 1,300 community colleges in the nation. I know you are as proud as we are of that distinction. It's Kingsborough of the City University of New York that is the only college in the entire Northeast and Mid-Atlantic regions to be selected as a finalist. Governor, we are so grateful that you recognize the value of our colleges and our students, and that you understand why community colleges such as Kingsborough, with our students from 142 national backgrounds who speak 73 different languages, are the new Ellis Island, providing opportunity to a whole new generation of New Yorkers. We appreciate the smart investments you are making in higher education and leveraging the strengths of our academic institutions to attract business to the state, to create jobs, and we all applaud you. Now, I am pleased to introduce one of Kingsborough's and Brooklyn's greatest advocates, our dear friend, the Borough President of Brooklyn, Marty Markowitz.
Thank you so much, Regina. By the way, you have to share with me that she is just an outstanding president. And I just love pronouncing her name, Regina Peruggi. I love it. I love it. And she proves, Regina, right here at Kingsborough, that if you have something that you want done right, you know what? We have to give it to a woman to get it done right. So I congratulate her. By the way, I have to say, whenever I'm back at Kingsborough, it means so much to me, not only because it's in Brooklyn, but it's where I met the love of my life, my wife, for the very first time, proving that you get a great college education and maybe even a love connection, too. Our city council member, David Greenfield, so good to see you, David, outstanding member of the city council. And of course, We're fortunate in Brooklyn to have the largest Democratic Party in the entire state. But Frank Seddio is the boss, the leader, the chief, and Frank Seddio, the best. And we have the most dynamic Chamber of Commerce in the whole state, led by Carlos Chesora. Governor Cuomo, I know I speak for everyone when I say on our behalf to thank you for your quick response to Hurricane Sandy. Your tireless effort, sensitivity, and effective leadership have helped ensure that Brooklynites and New Yorkers are able to get to a normal life as quickly as possible. And who would have thought that normal would look so good? And even though you're a boy from Queens, which we call Brooklyn Northeast, you've done pretty well by Brooklyn, from the Media Campus and Green Manufacturing Center at the Brooklyn Navy Yard to the Greenway Initiative to your excellent choice of Brooklynites like Ken Adams to head up the Empire State Development Corporation, and of course to our own Greg Smiley. So we are thrilled at your unbelievable contributions to Brooklyn. And it's not just Brooklynites and New Yorkers that are behind you, Governor. You captured America's attention with your bold and decisive leadership in passing the nation's strictest gun control laws, and maybe sending a message that we will not tolerate gun violence, and this love affair between America and guns has got to come to an end. And of course, your principled stand on same-sex marriages has been a major victory for equality and for civil rights. Meanwhile, your latest budget demonstrates how to practically close a $1.3 billion budget gap with no new taxes or fees, while at the same time prioritizing education, economic development, and critical social programs. All of us wish, Governor, that Congress would learn something from you about how to get things done, that's for sure. So, I know from your many successes it's clear that you've concentrated like a laser on making New York an even better place to live, work, and raise a family. And you've proven that New York State is governable. And all it needed was a principled and dynamic leader. And guess what? We got it. That's you. Now, I spent 23 long Albany winters in the New York Senate. So I know firsthand that it takes a special charismatic leader to be able to get all those different personalities with all their agendas focused on doing what's right for the residents of New York. So, Governor, here's my parting words at this moment. Remember this: if it's good for the state of New York, it's good for the United States. And now, it's my honor to introduce a young man. He's a student here, a brilliant student, an honest student, engineering major, and I predict this young man, he's going to fly as high as one could be. So let me introduce Dimitri Foster.
Thank you, Borough President. And on behalf of my fellow students, welcome Governor Cuomo to Kingsborough Community College. It is an honor to have you here, and I thank you for allowing me and inviting me to speak today. My name is Dimitri Foster. I am an honors student here at Kingsborough Community College and a second-year student for chemical engineering. After graduating from Kingsborough, I hope to get my bachelor's and master's degree in chemical engineering. Ultimately, I hope to start my own business in chemical engineering and to pursue the field in to make institutions such as pharmacies. Several years ago, I lost someone very close to me, and the loss led me to really think about my own future. One of the reasons I want to have my own business is I want to build my own legacy rather than follow the works of others. I've been researching black men who have made inspiring accomplishments in the field of medicine, and I plan to join them. Right now in New York, chemical engineering is not as common as places such as Texas and India. And that is why I want to build my business in New York soil and contribute to the field and economy here in New York. That is exactly what Governor Cuomo's transfer technology proposal will do. It will achieve the commercialization of good ideas and the creation of new businesses. It connects academics, venture capitalists, business leaders, and other professionals and entrepreneurs to facilitate and grow the commercialization process and keep businesses in New York. He has proposed hotspots that will provide startup across the state with incubators that support growth through tax-free zones. The governor wants to create in New York, stay in New York, and expand in New York. I was born and raised in Brooklyn, I go to school in Brooklyn, and I plan to stay in the state of New York because this is a place where young people like me and businesses can grow and thrive. Governor Cuomo's plan to invest in new ideas and businesses is an idea and investment in our future. He knows that too many entrepreneurs develop new business ideas and products and then leave the state, bringing those ideas and products to other places, and that ultimately hurts New York. I plan to stay here because I know our governor is willing to invest in my ideas and my future and the future of New York. I'd like to thank him for everything he has done so far for the great state of New York, and it's now my pleasure to introduce to you the governor of the great state of New York, Andrew Cuomo.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, Kingsborough. Oh, it's a better morning than that. Good morning, Kingsborough. All right, let's hear it for Dimitri Foster. Wasn't he great? Well, first, it is true that my mother and father were invited here first before I was invited. I didn't take any personal offense. I understood what it was right away. My mother was asked to be the commencement speaker because she is a Brooklyn girl, and there is a Brooklyn bias in Kingsborough. My mother was Avenue K, grew up on Avenue K and Schenectady Avenue, and she loves Brooklyn. I am a Queens boy. I grew up in Queens. I understand that there's a certain bias against Queens. I get it. I get it. I heard from the borough president. I got his point about the love connection at Kingsborough. I want you to know I may have lived in Queens, but the girls I dated were all from Brooklyn. I want you to know that. To Dr. Peruggi, who's doing an outstanding job here with Kingsborough. The academic accomplishment is really fantastic, and just congratulations on being a finalist for the Aspen Award, 1 of 10 out of 1,300. That is truly extraordinary. And let's give the president a round of applause and the entire management of the school. Borough President Marty Markowitz, who just epitomizes what a borough president should be. When you look it up in the dictionary, borough president, you see a picture of Borough President Markowitz. His spirit, his leadership, he is Brooklyn. He's been a great promoter for the borough. Let's give him a round of applause. To Councilman Greenfield, Frank Serio, pleasure to be with both of you. Thank you for your leadership and your service. Pleasure to be with you. And let me tell you what I'm here to talk to you about today. The beginning of the year, a chief executive, whether it's the president or the mayor or a governor, lays out a vision for that jurisdiction in broad strokes. We heard from President Obama, who does the State of the Union address a couple of weeks ago, where he said, this is my vision for the country, this is where we are, and this is where I think we should go, and these are the problems we have. Mayor does one, and the governor does one. They are traditionally presented to the legislative body. So you heard the president give his address to a joint session of Congress. The Congress and the Senate were there. And I did my presentation in Albany to the legislature in Albany, the Assembly and the Senate in Albany. But I've taken a little different track since I've been elected, and I try to keep it simple in life. I don't work for the legislature in Albany, and I don't work for the politicians. I work for you. So I want you to know, what the plan is, what the vision is. I want your feedback. You tell me what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. And if you agree, then I want to ask you to get involved in the process, because the process only works when people actually get involved. My father, former governor, used to say the squeaky wheel gets the grease in society. the people who get involved get the attention. So you want to make your voice heard, you have an opinion, then get involved. And that's what today is all about. The theme of the presentation I did is New York Rising. And it's something that you can relate to more than most. We've had a very difficult set of experiences, and we're building back from that set of experiences, but I believe that New York is going to be the stronger for it. The past few months, we've seen a blizzard of significant episodes, some good, some bad, some tragic, some inspiring hope. So let's begin by just taking our bearings. As I said, I was elected 2 years ago, and I said at that time that the state had to fundamentally change the path that it was on because it was not a good one, and that the state was at a crossroads, and either we were going to get our act together and reform the state, or we were headed down a bad road. Parts of this state have been in decline for many, many years, and that had to change. And we had to start a New York comeback and put the state on a different track. The core elements of that comeback: good jobs, economic growth. You heard it from Dimitri. This is about a career. This is about economic success that does for you and your family, and we need those jobs here in New York. Connected to attracting the jobs is having a world-class education system to prepare you for those jobs, and they go hand in glove. We need a state of fiscal integrity and discipline, and we need to restore New York as the progressive capital of the nation, because New York is not just another state. New York is a special state. I worked in Washington for 8 years during the Clinton administration, and during that time I worked in every state in the country, literally, and I would speak in every state in the country. And I would be giving a speech in whatever state it was, and somehow they could figure out I was from New York. I don't know how they actually, maybe it was my tie that gave it away. But they would always come up to me at the end of the speech and they would say, you know, what are you doing in New York about this? Whatever it was. People look to New York. New York has always had a special role. We were more complex, more diverse, more sophisticated, and we were the progressive leader, and other states looked to us. And we filled that role in the past, and we should fill it again in the future. Over the past 2 years, we've made progress. I think the state is on its way. Former governor of New York, great New Yorker, Al Smith, used to say, let's look at the record, let's look at the facts. Well, the state bureaucracy has changed, the culture has changed. It's no longer bureaucratic. We're more of a can-do government. We replaced it with what's called an entrepreneurial government. Why those two words? Because entrepreneurial government doesn't have to be an oxymoron. You can have a government that is creative and entrepreneurial, and that's the culture that we've been trying to bring to Albany. And we broke the political gridlock. Political gridlock is when politicians put their politics before the people's business. And you see now in Washington, D.C., as we speak, Democrats fighting with Republicans, Republicans fighting with Democrats, this one fighting with this one, pointing fingers, and nothing happens. And what we said in Albany was, you know what, we're Democrats, we're Republicans, but we're New Yorkers first, and we're going to act like New Yorkers first, and put the people's business first, and stop pointing fingers and actually get things done for the people and for the state, and that has worked for the past 2 years. We replaced the gridlock with a government that's actually working for the people, and we've made progress, but we have more to do. The national economy is not doing what it needs to do, and therefore the state economy isn't doing what it needs to do. Being a progressive capital, fighting for justice doesn't end. That fight goes on. It is a journey. It's not a destination. All of our children in this state are not being educated to the fullest. Some children get a world-class education. Some children get left behind. And Mother Nature has not been kind to us, and we have reconstruction to do. So let's begin. The 1-2 punch. The top two priorities for New York State are jobs and education, and they go together because it is about economic development. That's the engine that pulls the train. 2 years ago, we started a New York Open for Business campaign that said we have to change the stereotype and the reputation of the state. Everyone thinks New York State is the anti-business state, the high-tax state. If that's what they believe, people will leave because people are more mobile than ever before. Businesses are more mobile. And for many years, that was the reputation because it was the reality. And that's what we have to change. New York has to be the place to do business. We have to start by saying we are not the tax capital of the country. We're not going to tax you to death if you live in New York. Past 2 years, we actually reduced taxes, and that's the direction that we have to follow. And this year, we have to pass a budget for this state that has no new taxes whatsoever, because the people of this state are stretched to their limits, and the answer is not to raise taxes on the people of this state. Second rule is to pass the budget on time. The budget is supposed to be passed April 1. For many, many years, the state never passed its budget on time, and it almost became a joke. You would get to April 1 and the budget's supposed to be done, and there'd be an announcement, well, they can't reach agreement, it's going to be late. And then it was 1 week late and 2 weeks late and a month late. And it just became a metaphor for the whole dysfunction and the whole chaos of government. And it's why people resented the government. You know, people said, in my life, I have to pay my bills, I have to do my budget. Only government doesn't have to do their budget. We changed that over the past 2 years. We have had two on-time budgets. This year, I want to get the third on-time budget. It'll be the first time in about 30 years that happened, but it'll show real progress, and it's important that we get it done. The economic challenge is what Dimitri put his finger on. The regions that are doing well economically across the state and across this planet are the areas that do well in what's called the tech transfer area, from academia to commercialization. Where the jobs are coming from is out of high educational institutions of higher learning, where great minds are designing the next chip, the next cell phone, the next circuit board. And those ideas are birthed in a college, in a graduate school, and those ideas then become a business. What's happening in New York is we birth the ideas. We have the schools, we have the intellect, we have the minds, so we have the ideas, but they go to other states to become businesses. Why? Because they think New York is anti-business. So we birth the idea, and then they go to California, they go to Massachusetts, they go to Texas to actually form the business. That has to change. Those businesses have to be here. What we want to do to address this problem is called innovation hotspots, which will be partnerships between institutions of higher learning and businesses where we will create business incubators. And we're going to say to those new ideas, those new entrepreneurials, you come to this building and we will house you and we will give you the support services you need in this incubator. We'll give you the lawyers, the accountants, etc. We'll invest in your business as a state. We'll provide venture capital to grow your business. And in these locations, they will be no-tax zones. So these fledgling businesses will pay no taxes whatsoever. So New York has to be the most friendly business environment for them. And we ask one thing in return, which is when that business does well and that business starts to create jobs, that business stays in New York and hires New Yorkers and grows in New York, and that's the New York investment. The next challenge is to have a ready workforce. This is what you guys are working for every day. We have an outdated model of job training. We have a model that goes back to the old manufacturing era that we thought we could have a one-size-fits-all worker training program and give a person a generic job training program and then they go out and get a job. But that doesn't work anymore. We have to flip the model where you identify the job first and the specific skill set that goes with that job, and then we train for that job. So you identify the employer, identify the job, identify the skills, and then develop a curriculum for that specific job and place the person in that job. We also have an advantage now, or at least an opportunity, because jobs are coming back from overseas. You remember a few years ago, all the corporations were going overseas. Cheap labor is overseas. American labor is too expensive. So all the corporations got on a boat and they went overseas, and that was the whole great corporate move. cheap labor in Asia, etc. You know what the corporations found when they got overseas? They found you get what you pay for. You pay for cheap labor, you get cheap labor. They got back on the boat, they're coming back. Why? Because they need skills. They need skilled workers, and you get skilled workers in this country. We have 210,000 unfilled jobs in the state of New York as we sit here today. Why? Because the businesses can't find the skill set to fill the job. That's our opportunity. Training for those 210,000 jobs and the jobs that are coming back from overseas. But we have to have the training programs, and that's what we call the Next Generation Job Linkage Program. Identify the job, train for that job. Once you have the job has to pay a wage that you can actually live. Teddy Roosevelt said it has to more than cover the bare cost of living. State and the federal government have something called the minimum wage laws, where the state sets a minimum wage. Current minimum wage, if you work full-time, you make $14,600 a year by the minimum wage. And the question is, can you live on that wage? Well, the cost of gas is $1,200. Cost of electricity is $1,300. Cost of auto insurance, $1,400, unless you have my record, and then it's even higher than the $1,400. Cost of groceries, $6,500. Child care, $10,000. Cost of housing, $15,000. Minimum wage, the numbers just don't add up. You could look at the other states in our region. We're being outpaced. I propose raising the minimum wage to $8.75 an hour. It's the right thing to do. It's the fair thing to do. And it's long overdue, and it's something we should do now. When it comes to education, which is linked to jobs, we have two words, more and better. First, we need more learning time, not just in this state, but in this country. We are getting outpaced globally by other countries. You know why? They educate their children more than we do, just in terms of hours. You look at our academic calendar, the children have off in the summer. You know why they have off in the summer? Because the schedule was done when we were an agrarian society and you needed the children home to work in the fields during the summer. But other countries, they've changed, they've adopted. They get that it's about skills and it's about education, and they're spending more time literally in the classroom. And we have to start to make that shift, because if you believe that education is the key and children are the future, and you want to make sure the next generation has the skills, and they're going to be competing internationally, then get them prepared to compete internationally, and let's start making this transition. So how do you have more education? You have a longer school day, option A, a longer year, less vacation, less summer vacation, etc., or you have a combination of both. Now, this is right, I believe. I believe it's visionary for where we have to go in the future. It's also going to be difficult. Why? Because we have a whole society that's now organized around these calendars. 9 to 3 is when kids are in school, and people plan that way. Summer vacation, months off, we plan that way. What we're saying is this. I very much believe this is the way to go for the future. There are 700 school districts in the state of New York, and we're going to leave it up to each school district to decide whether or not they want to participate in this initiative, having more time. And they can do it however they want. They can have a longer day, they can have a longer year, they can have a combination of both, but I want to incentivize it, so I'm saying if they propose more education, the state will pay 100% of the cost for that additional education. The same is also true for early education. Every test says the earlier you get that child into school, the earlier they're learning, the better their scores, the better their options in life turn out to be. We should have pre-K for all our children. We should start it now. It's an investment in the future. We should also need to understand what's happening with education in distressed communities. We've had this ongoing debate in society where we talk about a school in a rich community and a school in a poor community, and we talk about them like they're doing the same thing. And we talk about the teachers in a school in a rich community and the teachers in a poorer school, and we want to compare them like it's apples to apples. It's not apples to apples. The school in the poorer community is doing Education Plus. Those teachers are teaching, but that school is also trying to make up for lack of a two-parent family. It's trying to make up for a household that doesn't have the economic resources. It's trying to make up for a community that doesn't have the support services. And the children in the poorer communities often need more help and more assistance. Let's recognize it for what it is. Let's give those schools the kind of help and kind of assistance that they actually need. Let's invest in those children. They are a different phenomenon, and let's call them something different. They are community schools. They're doing education, but they're also the social service network for that community. And let's give that child the wraparound support services they need, the after-school programs, the mentoring programs, the nutrition programs, the health programs, so that child gets off to the best start. We've started an aggressive investment in higher education because that is the key. We have a great SUNY system in this state, and we've been investing in SUNY, and we have a great CUNY system, and we've been investing in CUNY, and we should continue those investments because they're reaping dividends for the state of New York. Now, while education and economic opportunity are the main thrusts, as I said in the beginning, there's also more to New York. And New York is one community, and it is a community that tolerates no discrimination. We're the equality capital of the nation. That's how I think of us. Why? Because we started with the premise of diversity. And we were bringing people from all over the globe, different colors, different races, different ethnicities. And we had one rule to make this eclectic group work. And the one rule was, we're all equal. And we're all treated equally. And we have no tolerance for discrimination one of the other. And that's New York's rule. That is the founding rule. And it's a profound one. And it's one you have to revisit and adapt. We have issues now in a policy called stop and frisk. Stop and frisk is a law enforcement policy that has been shown actually to reduce the amount of crime. But there are issues that it raises. There are about 50,000 arrests in New York City through stop and frisk for marijuana possession, more than any other offense. Of those arrests, 82% are black and Hispanic, 82% of the marijuana arrests. 70% about are under the age of 30 years old. So we are arresting tens of thousands of young black and brown, predominantly male, young people on low-level marijuana possessions. What this does is it gives a young person a criminal record, which then stigmatizes them. They have a permanent record. It criminalizes them. It makes it harder to find a job in the future. It is not fair to them. It's not right societally, and it's a policy that we must end. And I want to propose a law change that will resolve this. Right now, marijuana that is on a person, low level of marijuana that you have in your pocket, that you have on your person, is a violation. It's not criminal. It's illegal. It's a violation, but it's not criminal. I want to change the marijuana laws so that having in what's called public view, a young person having a small amount of marijuana is not a misdemeanor. It is not a crime. It's not a criminal record. It will be a violation, and it's illegal, but it's not criminal, and it won't give a criminal record. That would decriminalize the activity. And give young people a start. New York State is the equality capital, and we passed marriage equality, which is what's called same-sex marriage. And when we passed marriage equality about 2 years ago, two things happened. First, we ended discrimination for millions and millions of gay people and their families. And we ensured fairness for millions of New Yorkers. Second, we started a whole dialogue all across the country that caused other states and other communities to look at themselves and look in the mirror. Because New York did it, they noticed, they heard about it, and they said, well, maybe it's something that we should do. This pursuit of justice, this pursuit of equality is ongoing. And we have to, from time to time, stop and look around and ask ourselves, are we really free from discrimination? Or do there continue to be subtle forms of discrimination that still exist that we have tolerated for too long? And are there other levels of discrimination that we should actually attack? And is there more to do?
These two babies were born in the same hospital on the same day at the same time. They will both go home to loving families and good homes. They will attend good schools, get the same grades, and earn the same degree. They will enter the same profession, but their lives will be much different. One will earn, on average, $11,000 less per year and $500,000 less over a lifetime. The other is 32 times more likely to become a CEO or serve on a corporate board. One is 5 times more likely to be sexually harassed or become a victim of domestic violence, and more than twice as likely to be a victim of housing or lending discrimination. One is twice as likely to become a single parent living in poverty, and twice as likely to live out old age in poverty. Why? Because one is a girl. It's not right. It's not fair. It's time for a Women's Equality Act.
The truth is, there is still discrimination. In many ways, this is still a man's world, and there is discrimination against women, and it's time that it has to end, and it should end in the state of New York. Let's do it for New York. Let's make this statement for the nation. New York was the birthplace of the women's rights movement at Seneca Falls. We'll do it again. We have a 10-point women's equality agenda that we want to pass this year. Starts by shattering the glass ceiling because women still make 77 cents to a man's dollar, zero tolerance for sexual harassment, strengthen the employment, lending, and credit discrimination laws, strengthen human trafficking laws, end family status discrimination, stop private landlords from denying housing to qualified tenants based on Section 8, stop housing discrimination for victims of domestic violence, which is a real problem, stop pregnancy discrimination, protect victims of domestic violence, and protect a woman's right to choose. Another issue that we had to address, which we did on the second day of the legislative session, was the issue of gun violence. It has been ongoing. There have been some terrible episodes lately, Newtown, Connecticut, etc. We had a case in Webster, New York, which is outside of Rochester in upstate New York, on Christmas Eve, where a person set fire to a car in front of his home and waited for the firefighters to come and then shot the firefighters from his window with an assault weapon. We said in New York, enough is enough. We understand that people have a right, Second Amendment right, to bear arms, but we need a policy that is reasonable and balanced and measured, that respects hunters and sportsmen, but ends the unnecessary risk of high-capacity assault weapons, and that's just what we did. New York passed a law that keeps guns from criminals and the mentally ill, bans assault weapons and high-capacity magazines, closes the private sale loophole, tougher penalties for illegal handguns, and the Webster provision, mandatory life sentence for killing a first responder, period. We've called it the New York SAFE Act. The New York State Legislature passed it. It was a gutsy, courageous vote, and I applaud them, and you should too. And last but not least, on top of everything, we have to respond to the crisis. Hurricane Sandy is, as you well know, October 29th, but it feels like yesterday. The first thing is to learn from what has happened. I don't believe these are just isolated storms anymore. We have 100-year floods every 3 years now. There is a fact that climate change is real. It is inarguable that the sea is warmer and that there is a changing weather pattern, and we have to be ready for it, and we have to be prepared for it. And I don't want to just rebuild what was. I want to rebuild smarter and better than before. There are homes that are in dangerous areas. Rather than just rebuilding them time after time after time, let's invest a little bit more the first time and mitigate them and have design characteristics that can actually prevent damage. There are parts of this land that Mother Nature owns. And she may only visit every 2 years or 3 years or 4 years, but when she visits, she reclaims the site. And some homeowners have rebuilt multiple times in the past decade. And if people want to say enough is enough, I'm done rebuilding, I want to buy out, the state will be in a position to buy out their home and leave it vacant and let them start their life in a different location. We have to harden our infrastructure for these storms and floods. We haven't been ready for it. The New York City subway system is not prepared to deal with floods. You know, they talk about Manhattan and the brilliance in the engineering in Manhattan of building high and the skyscrapers. The real engineering brilliance is how deep we built. Parts of Manhattan go down 15 stories. That's where the subway systems are, the conduits are, the water systems. We were not designed to have flooding, because if you fill up all that infrastructure underground, we have no way of pumping that out now. That all has to be re-engineered, and the time to do it is now. Same with our airports. It can't be every time there's a storm. The airports flood. We need a fuel delivery system redesign. You remember all the chaos on the fuel afterwards and the lines? That was all caused by a day-and-a-half break in supply. A day and a half. The Coast Guard closed the harbor because there was debris in the harbor. We couldn't bring in the tankers for a day and a half. And a day and a half caused that delay because there was no fuel backup. There's no reserve system. The pumps went down when the electricity went down. We have to redesign that whole system. We have to harden our utilities. It can't be every time the wind blows, a tree falls, a line breaks, and everybody's out of power for 2 weeks. We have to have the best emergency response network in the country because it will happen again. We also have to empower communities to rebuild their own community. Because you know who knows best what a community needs are people in that community. And I want to provide the funds for communities to figure out what they need and help them rebuild on their own. These are the eligible communities that need to be rebuilt, and we'll be providing funding to those communities so they can build themselves back. The good news is we got $30 billion from Washington to do the Sandy reconstruction. We worked very hard to do it, but I want to thank the Congress and I want to thank President Obama because $30 billion is a lot of money, and that's going to make a big difference. And the best news is that we are New Yorkers, and we are a special breed of people. And we are a special collection of people. And this storm had a silver lining in that it brought us together. You know, a little bit we're like a family. And left to our own devices, we find reasons to fight, and we find tensions, and people tend to go their separate ways. But then, like in a family, God forbid something really bad happens, somebody's health or somebody dies, God forbid, you see that family come together and pull together. That's what happened to New York with Hurricane Sandy. We had a tragedy, people needed help, and New Yorkers came together like I haven't seen them come together in decades. And it wasn't that we were black and white and brown and upstate and downstate and gay and straight. We were New Yorkers. We forgot the differences. We forgot the petty differences. We found the commonalities. We're neighbors. We're citizens. We're all New Yorkers. And we came together as one. And when we come together as one, there is nothing that we can't do. There is nothing that the state of New York, when we are united, we can do anything. And that, my friends, that is the silver lining. Why is New York rising? Because, yes, we have problems. But our problems pale in comparison to our strength, which is that we have the most talented people on this planet. We have the best schools, the best hospitals, the best health care system. And we have dealt with problems before, and we come back the stronger for it. That's the story of New York. It's the history of New York, and it's going to be the future of New York. And we're going to come back from Sandy better than ever before. And we're doing it this year. Thank you, and God bless you.